Hello, I'm Andrew, and today I thought we would talk about my school life. So I went to the schools in the village that I grew up in. In the UK here, where I lived, we had a two-tier system, so that meant that there was a primary school and then a secondary school. So primary school for me started with reception year, so that was 1 year before normal school started for a lot of other people. The way they did mine was a bit strange. For 1 year, for some reason, they decided to do an experiment where they had half of my year and half of the year above swap around the order in which they did the school. So I did what was effectively year 1 as my reception year, and then went back to do reception year in the second year, which was a bit weird, because then when it came to the year 2, it kind of meant that the half that I was in were very slightly behind as a result. So I don't know why they did that. But the rest of primary school went quite well. It was a fairly happy experience. I remember one teacher that we were all scared of, as I'm sure everybody had at some point during their school. We did kind of like, I think it was year 4. We had year 3, the teacher there was great, she was lovely, and everybody, you know, it was fun lessons, it was fun, but at the same time we were learning a lot. And then year 4, it was like deadly serious. The teacher was scary and deadly serious, and you had to be doing the right things. I might have got my years muddled up, so I apologise to the teachers if they actually know me and remember. But then as you moved into kind of 5 and 6, it was much more about getting us ready to then move up to the secondary school. And I guess 5 and 6 would have been like the start of middle school. We were then moving into much more serious kind of lessons, getting you ready for, I guess, SATs, was it, that we did in primary school? I'm so rubbish with my memory. Because at the end of year 6, we had formal exams, and then we moved up into the secondary school. I remember those 2 years being quite difficult, but also being quite good. You know, I learned a lot in those 2 years. And the teachers did an absolutely brilliant job of getting us ready for secondary school, because it was obviously a completely different experience. You suddenly were in this school full of lots of older kids. The lessons were much more serious. And it was a big step change. So moving from sort of primary school into secondary school was, don't get me wrong, very scary at the time. But because we were moving, the whole of us were moving to the same school. No one was going to another school. I remember at the very end of primary school, we got to pick who we wanted to be in the same form as in the secondary school, which was kind of cool, because it meant that you then went up into secondary school with people that you knew and hopefully were your friends. Now, the two friends that I was really close to didn't get on, and so it made my choice very difficult, and it meant that I actually ended up picking people that I were friends with, but nowhere near as close with as I should have done. And so secondary school was a completely new start. But I'd got on really well with everybody in primary school, so I'd never really experienced any kind of bullying or anything like that. Primary school was an absolutely lovely, happy time. And I remember everyone being fun to be with. There were a few little arguments between people. None of them really affected me. And although my close friends didn't really get along, they never had proper fights. It was just kind of like, well, they didn't really want to talk to each other. But you were primary school kids, so you weren't that old, and there wasn't really kind of bullying and fighting and all that sort of stuff. So what I wasn't prepared for in secondary school was how much harder personally it would be. As where I got on really well in lessons and got through and did, you know, really well in school, in the form of academically, actually personally, I found secondary school very difficult. It was hard. There were some really nice people in my form, but then there were a few odd ones that I really didn't get along with. And I was not one of the cool kids. And I was borderline the middle of the road people, but I did fall into the geeky realm a little bit too much, which meant that I was bullied by certain people that they were just bullies. It didn't happen all of the time, and don't get me wrong, most of the time secondary school was fine, but it wasn't the happy experience that a lot of other people had. But I did do very well. At the end of it, I came out and I'd passed all of my GCSEs. Not one of them was below a C, and a lot of them were A's, so I did quite well. I then stayed in that school to do my A-levels. I then went on to what they call sixth form, which would have been like going to college to do my A-levels, which at the time was a very kind of selfish decision, because I didn't want to move away from where I was comfortable. But in hindsight, I probably should have done, because I'd been in the same primary school and secondary school for all of my life. Up until that point, the idea of moving to somewhere completely new was very scary. But sixth form was a little better. Some of the friends that I was close to in primary school, I then spent much more time with because they ended up in my form. So that was kind of cool. I got to sort of rekindle friendships that I had. And most of the time, sixth form was good. Yeah, I did an odd combination of subjects, because we got to pick 4 for A-levels, and then we dropped 1, because at the time it was AS and A2. I don't know if it still is, but we had to drop 1 at the end of AS. So I did product design, physics, business studies, and IT. So I thought they'd all work quite well together. You know, product design kind of needs an understanding of physics. You need to be able to run a business to be able to do anything like that. And obviously IT is just important for anything. And it was IT that I ended up dropping at AS levels, which was the odd one, because for some reason, even though I did very well in the exams and everything else, for some reason the coursework I didn't get a very good grade on. So I decided it was probably better to just drop it and move on. So I carried on with physics, design and business studies into A2. And out of those, business studies I did fairly well in. Product design was my passion, so I did pretty well in that. But physics was the hardest one, because physics relied a lot at that stage, at A-level stage, on advanced maths. And everybody else that was in that class, bar maybe one other guy, were all doing maths as well. So they'd got a good understanding of that by that point, as where I really hadn't. So I had to put in an awful lot of extra work in to get that right. And it meant that I did the weird thing. Most people in physics get B's and A's because they get it and they're really good at it and they're really good at the advanced maths. Or they get D's and E's or fail because they can't do that side of it. Maybe they get the rest of it, but because it's so intense, it's very difficult. And I was one of those. I was falling into that D and E kind of area, and with the help of my teacher, we managed to push my grade up. And I got a C, which was, ironically, I was more proud of that C than I have been of any of the A's that I had throughout the rest of my subjects and GCSEs and everything else. So following A-level, I actually got a job. I was working at Debenhams as a sales assistant for a year. And during that time, I decided that because my plan was to try and get a job doing product design, and what I didn't realise was that there was no way that was going to happen without a degree. But I then did product design at university, and that was a real turning point, if I'm honest, in my life, because that was the point where I completely started again. Everybody was new, everything was completely new. It meant that I made lots of new friends, and I could start again and not feel like I was the geeky one or and to be honest, when I got there wasn't that sort of structure anymore. There wasn't the cool kids and the geeky kids. It just didn't exist. Everybody was just everybody. It was a little bit more like being back at primary school. So we all just kind of like got on really well, and we all helped each other out a lot. And university was really good. It was a really good time. I did quite well in it because I wanted to. I was paying a lot of money for it, so I made sure that I did well. But the thing that I took out of it the most, I think, was actually how to teach myself. Because although the tutors were really good, the lessons were more about us finding the best way to do something. That I think is probably the one skill that I learned at university that I use the most. And I wish I'd learned it a little bit earlier. Because being able to self-teach information for a subject meant that I could learn how to do things to aid and elevate my projects above everybody else's, which is probably the most important thing in any business, anything in life really, is to make sure that you are better than that person that you're competing with. Yeah, while I was there, I taught myself how to use 3D CAD packages and started programming. And the combination of those allowed me to do things that the other students couldn't do. And because I'd sort of self-taught myself those while I was there, I was able to use them in my final projects to kind of improve the quality of my renders and other bits and pieces. And then those are the skills that I use the most at work. So that's my school life from primary school through secondary school, A-levels and university. It's a lot to cover in one very short video, but hopefully you liked it. If you would like me to expand on a particular experience, then leave me a comment. I'm happy to do more about one particular subject maybe, or one particular time of my life. If you'd like me to talk about anything else that's happened in my life, then leave me a comment. Don't forget to like and share this video if you did, and obviously subscribe to the channel because there's going to be more videos coming soon. So I'll see you all again soon. Bye.